Hi everyone, I've popped outside to give this talk where maybe I've got a little bit more peace. I've moved to my favourite bluebell wood here, and what we're going to talk about now is the big question: why does God allow COVID-19 and why doesn't he put an end to it? Guys, there's no simple answer to this, but the Bible, it does give us some insight. One of the books of the Bible, called the Book of Job, describes the life of a man called Job. Job loses everything in his life and tries to figure out why. In case you don't know the story, here's a short video explaining the whole book. I enjoyed it and I hope you do too. When we are suffering, or the world is suffering like it is now, we won't always be able to work out why. God, he never told Job why he was suffering, but he did tell him there was a good reason why. He pointed out that Job knew very little about the universe and asked him to trust God. The Book of Job is not so much about, gotta get through this bit. The Book of Job is not so much about why God allows suffering as to about how we should respond to it. We're currently living in a world that I describe as it is and not as it is to come. What do I mean by this? Well, we live in a fallen, imperfect world where we should expect suffering, sin, sadness and mourning. We only need to look back 10 years and we can see natural disasters and wars where loads of people have sadly died. We can look back even further in history, back to the biblical times. Such things, although really awful, shouldn't surprise us, should they? But there's one thing that we can be certain of, something that doesn't change, and that is that God has a much bigger picture of his kingdom than what we do. God promises us that we will live in eternity with him, a place that's free of suffering, of sadness, of sickness and death, and that's in heaven. This promise, this life of eternity, that hasn't changed. Paul, who writes some of the books in the New Testament, he wrote this in the book of Romans: I consider that our present sufferings are not worth comparing with the glory that will be revealed to us. On another occasion, in the book that he wrote to the Corinthians, he writes, for these light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. We need to accept that there's no simple answer to the why question of COVID-19. But guys, God is a God who's suffering alongside us. He's not looking down from heaven, far removed from us. We know that. We can see it all throughout the Bible. Hang on, I need to get into here. God, he sent his only son to us. And while Jesus was on earth, he suffered. He suffered on the cross. And that means that God doesn't know just about our suffering, but he knows what it feels like as well. God sent us Jesus so that we can model our lives on him. And we can't get through these sufferings alone. I think it's extraordinary that the God of all creation is here with us, alongside us in these darkest of moments. We're not alone. When we suffer, he's suffering with us. I also believe God is going to use this time to teach us more and more about how much we need God in our lives. So I'm not saying that suffering is a good thing in itself, nor does God cause it, but God is able to use it for his good. C.S. Lewis, he's the author of all the stories about Narnia, and he's a Christian author. He wrote something along the lines of this: that when we are enjoying ourselves in our pleasures, God whispers. When we are conscious, God speaks. But in our pain, God is shouting to us. This has proved true again and again in Christian history. Many people begin to think about God when we start to suffer. It's not that we would wish COVID virus upon ourselves or on other people, but I do think we're soon going to start to hear of many more stories from individuals who found this time to be one of the most transformative times of their lives and the time that they have got to know Jesus. We have seen that we can begin to make sense of some of the suffering when we understand that God can use it to bring us and others closer to Jesus. Many will be asking at this time, where can God be found in all of this? And guys, I believe that he will be found. So to summarise, first, we can't fully understand why God allows COVID-19, nor why he won't end it. Second, although our world as we see it is really different right now, heaven is constant and God's love for you is constant. That never changes. Third, we can be assured that God is here to help us through it. He's involved in our suffering and he's given us Jesus as a friend and saviour to help us endure these tough times. And fourth, God is going to use this time of suffering for his good and for our good. I want us to respond this evening by being positive and thinking about the two questions. What does God want me to do? How can I help others? So what we're going to do now is split into smaller Zoom discussion groups. So you'll soon find yourself in a smaller group of people attending this evening service. And with those people, we're going to discuss the two questions. What does God want me to do? And how can I help others? Guys, I want us to really use this time to think about some practical ways that we can be serving our communities or serving our friends and families or people who don't know Jesus yet. So please, I really want us to come away with some really creative, practical ideas. Okay, I'll see you there.